Hello and marhaba, I'm Hania and welcome to my channel. In today's video we're going to be continuing on our how to make Msemmen video series. Msemmen, or Maarek as it's known here where I live in northern Algeria, is a speciality of all the North African countries. It's a traditional layered rich crepe-like flatbread that is traditionally prepared by vigorously kneading in all semolina dough for long periods of time. But in today's video, I'll be showing you how to prepare the dough without any kneading at all. Don't forget to give this video a like if you find it helpful. And if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe as well as hitting the bell so you don't miss out on a thing. All the ingredients are listed up on the screen as well as in the description box below. So bismillah, let's go over the ingredients that we're going to need for our no-knead Msemmen or Maarek dough today. So as in with our previous videos, the ingredients are quite similar. So today we're going to be using semolina flour, which is called semolfine in French or semolita. And here in Algeria, in Algerian Arabic, they call it Rghaif. And we also have all-purpose flour. Here I have some room temperature water. We also have salt, and we also have sugar. So as I mentioned in my previous videos, the amount of salt to sugar that you use in this recipe really depends on how you eat your Msemmen or your Maarek. So if you have a sweet tooth and you like to serve your Msemmen with honey, confiture, jams, or even Nutella, I would suggest using more sugar, about 1 tablespoon. But if you like to serve your Msemmen, your Maarek in a savory way with cream cheese, olives, or other type of vegetables, I would use more salt. So I would use 2.5 teaspoons of salt. And as with our previous videos, we are going to be using butter to spread on the layers when we are shaping our Msemmen. So it's the evening now, it's about 7 o'clock my time. So I'm just going to mix my dough here and then let it rest on my countertop until the next morning. So it'll have about an 8 or 9, possibly 10-hour wait that it is going to be resting. Of course, it can be left longer for up to about 15 hours, but I like to leave it between 8 to 10 hours in total resting. So all I'm going to simply do is add in my salt to my mixing bowl, and then add equal parts of flour and semolina, so that's 500 grams each. And now I'm going to add in my water. So I'm going to use about 700 milliliters, which is about 3 cups of water. So in today's recipe, I'm not using any yeast because we will have this dough resting overnight. So there's no need for kneading and of course for the yeast either. So I'm just going to simply mix that together. So you just want to grab and mix. So we're not doing any kneading here, we're just mixing all the flour and the semolina in together so we don't have none of it sticking to the sides of our bowl. So what I like to do is I just like to grab it and smush it. Grab it and smush it. There's our dough. It's really shaggy looking, kind of elastic already, but that's just how it is. It's really easy, it's really simple as you can see so far. So all I'm going to do is just coat my dough with some oil. You can optionally use melted butter if you like, or you can use olive oil, whichever you like. So all I'm going to do is just make sure that it's coated very well all over. And just like with the previous video, I have a plastic bag here that I've soaked in some hot water. So this is going to act like an incubator, just like my previous recipe. So all I'm going to do is just slide my dough right in there, secure it, flatten it out a bit, and I'm going to allow that to rest overnight. So what I like to do is I like to take the mixing bowl that I mixed up everything in, clean it out of course so that it's clean, rest my dough in the bag, and then put a lid over it such as this, the lid that came with my mixing bowl. Just leave it like that. I like to leave it on the countertop. If you're living in a really cold area, then of course I would cover it with a clean kitchen towel. If you're living in a really hot area, I would suggest putting it in the refrigerator. So there you go. We're gonna leave that to rest overnight for 8 hours, 10 hours, I would say maximum 12 hours. See you in about 8 hours. Resting in our bowl on the countertop overnight. So now we're just gonna lift it out of our bag and see what it looks like. So as you can see here, it's super stretchy. It's like chewing gum. See? It's completely smooth. So at this point, I just give it a few turns, not kneading it, just to form it into a nice ball. So it's smooth. It's completely smooth. So like this. So now as we have our smooth ball of dough, I am going to just gently and generously cover it with some butter, melted butter. Of course you can use a combination of oil and butter if you like, but it's really not necessary. So I'm just going to put that aside, and then we're going to form our balls just like in our last video. So here I have my tray here, the same tray that I used in my last video. And I'm just going to generously grease it with my melted butter, as you can see here. You can see our dough is well rested. It's already starting to spread. As you can see, the first one that I made here, it's already spread out. So unlike the other recipe in the previous video, we are not going to have to let these rest. The dough is just going to rest for the time that I'm preparing the balls and stretching out the dough. So that's enough resting time. So of course when we fold and stretch and then later bake our Msemmen, we have to always work with the first one. So this was the first one here, this ball here. So this one would be the first one that I'm going to fold, and then it would be the first one that I'm going to bake. And then the last one that I made, like this one for example, this would be the last one. So here you can see that I have all my balls that I've prepared. So all I'm going to do is just generously cover them in the butter mixture as with the previous video. This is a really key component of making this type of dough, Msemmen dough, and all its variations. So when you make Msemmen and all the variations, whether you're making Hajib or you're making Rghaif or even melwi, you always have to make sure that the dough is super stretchy, that you can stretch it out, and that it's well buttered. So now I'm going to cover that with some plastic wrap, just like in the previous video, and then I'm going to allow it just to rest for about 5 minutes. So now I'm just going to wrap my Msemmen dough in plastic so that it doesn't dry out. We definitely don't want the Msemmen to dry out because then it won't be stretchy. It will have this crust on it, and then it will be really hard to stretch out. So I'm just going to cover that well so that there is no chance of my Msemmen dough having a skin over it. I'm going to set that aside and grease my other tray. So now I'm just going to spread my butter mixture over this tray, on which I will be placing all of my folded Msemmen, so I can prepare the dough, have it all ready, and then bake them off. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to generously apply the butter mixture onto my work surface, as you can see. And then I'm going to be working with my first piece of dough. So we just want to work the dough, so we want to pat it out. So we're working from the outside, all around the outside. We don't want to pat from the inside because then we'll have that thin and all this outside really thick. So we want to pat from the outside with gentle. So I'm using the fingertips here, but I'm not using these fingertips, I'm using the pads of my fingertips to just gently pat the dough out. And at a certain point I can just start to slide in a circular motion. It doesn't matter if you're going clockwise or counterclockwise, but you just want to kind of brush the dough so that it gets bigger. Once you get a hang of the dough, you can start to go faster. And once you see that your outside of your dough is as thin as it could be, then you can start to spread out the middle. And this way, if you have some holes that are starting to form, you can just brush the dough over it and kind of patch them up. If you're stretching out the middle, then the outside starts to get thick. Then of course, then you just go over the outside parts which have gotten thick, and you just keep going. At a certain point, you can just lift your dough. This is much like when you make strudel, for those of you that know how to make strudel. So you lift the dough, and then again with the pads of your fingers, you just lift and pull. Lift and pull. And now you can take a corner piece of your dough and start folding it into an envelope. Fold one side, straighten out a bit, and then fold the next side. And then fold the other, and then finally the fourth piece of dough. If you have any straggling pieces of dough like this, just fix them and arrange them so that they're nicely fitted into your little parcel. Straighten out your Msemmen if needed, and then place onto a butter tray. Of course, we want to also cover the folded Msemmen with plastic wrap so that it doesn't form a crust. Now repeat the process with the remaining dough, and be sure to place all the dough onto the buttered surface and also cover it. So now that we have all of our Msammen all prepared, all folded, now we're ready to bake them all off. So what I like to do is preheat my skillet or my Tadjine or tawa, whatever you're using, until it's nice and hot. You can gently flatten and fix some of the blemished parts of your Msammen so that it's nicely formed into an even square. You can add some butter time to time to your Msammen, and just make sure that it's always moving around, that it doesn't get any kind of browning or burnt color. So the ideal Msammen, the ideal Maarek, is golden. Just a little bit brown is fine, but the darker it is, the more likely it'll be crispy and it'll develop a really burnt kind of bitter taste. Continue to bake your Msammen on both sides, occasionally turning it so that it doesn't get too brown or burnt. Once your Msammen is cooked thoroughly through, place it onto a platter and then repeat with the remaining dough. Here we have our Msammen, or Maarek as it's called here where I live. We like to serve this with some honey, as you can see here, but also with some jam, confiture, or even Nutella. You can also serve this Msammen in savory way by spreading cream cheese over it, or serving it with some olive oil to dip in to, also with a side of olives as they do in Kabylia. As you can see, our msemmen is nice and flexible, really chewy and soft. If you've enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a like and share with a friend. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below. And if you did try out my recipe, be sure to send me a photo via Facebook or Instagram. I'd love to see your results. And until next time, peace be upon you and see you in the next video.